Hey, this is Zuchi from the Zuchi Super Cool Book Club that is cool. This week we're going to go through the portion of the Feeling Good Handbook that I read by David Burns. I didn't finish the whole book, it's quite a lengthy book, but um, we're just going to go through, I think, the first three parts, and next week we'll probably go through the rest of it. Uh, the idea of this kind of book club is just, I'll read as much as I can, but I'm not going to rush it. If this book takes 3 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. No big deal. Yeah, let's get started. Um, so there were two beginning chapters, but they were mainly just talking about like what the idea of all of it is, like the cognitive behavior therapy, and like uh, there were some like really poignant things of like how, oh yeah, you're reading this, you might think like, wow, this is a magical solution. I was thinking like, yeah, I am thinking that, and like uh, when he said like uh, this is only as effective as you make it. I was thinking like, huh. I was thinking that like there's no way this works. Like how much effort am I actually gonna have to give? And then he answered that question like in the next paragraph. It was kind of crazy. So, I feel like this guy kind of knows his stuff. Yeah. Um anyways, fast forwarding past like I think it's first two chapters, first chapter ish. Uh there's basically cognitive distortions, which are um like things that make your brain make you think or make you have those depressive thoughts of like these aren't actually things that you should be thinking. They're not fair to think, and like it'll make you just feel worse. Like the 10 are all or nothing, overgeneralization, mental filter, disqualifying the positive, jumping to conclusions, magnifying and minimizing, emotional reasoning, should statements, labeling and mislabeling, and then personalization. Uh, First off, with all or nothing, it's the belief that things are absolute, in other words, black or white. Uh, in reality, things can be in between. Like the example the book used, I think, was um, if you're in a class and you're aiming for an A, but you get a B, you aren't a failure because you got a B. You still got a good result, right? You aim for an 80 on the exam, but you get a 70. Like you feel like a failure, but if the average was a 60, 70 is a good result. Like it's a spectrum of results. You aren't defined as like you are a failure, you are a success. There's things in between. And it's like learning to see yourself as not just like, oh, I failed this, therefore I am an inadequate person. Next up was overgeneralization, overextending the bad outcome onto other things. This is the author's analogy was a Svengali deck. I had to look up what this is. It's just a term for like a magic deck of cards. And the trick he was like pointing out was if you have a card, you like pick that card, and then like the guy changes all the cards in the deck to that one card. That's kind of what overgeneralization is. Just like you kind of think like, oh, this is just how everything is when it's just like one bad thing. It's kind of similar to one of the later ones, but like I was thinking like, man, League of Legends. I love League of Legends. I was thinking like in Arena, like, man, like what's the point of playing this if I'm just gonna keep getting bad rolls? But that's the thing. I'm not gonna keep getting bad rolls. In the game, like over long enough period of time, I'm gonna have an insane roll. And it's just like you shouldn't think like because of one bad thing, everything in the future is gonna be bad. And like I have thought that. Like it it's weird because like thinking about it now, like it's like why would I ever think that? But in the moment, you'll think like life is so bad it will always be this bad. Next up, this mental filter. This is the one I was talking about. Ignoring the good, only seeing the bad. It differs from overgeneralization because this is more focusing on the bad rather than extrapolating the bad. Kind of like, uh, your friend spends every Friday with you, and they say they're busy this Friday. You think like, oh, they hate me, but you're ignoring the fact that they've spent like the past 13 Fridays with you, right? Like, just focusing on that bad. The book's example I think was like a car salesman or something. A bird pooped on his car, and he was like, "Man, this happens all the time." And then the guy just asked him like, "When was the last time this happened?" And he genuinely thought, huh, you know, you're right. It's never happened before. You know, it's just like when you're in this kind of mood or like this kind of mindset, it's really easy to like zero in on just the bad that like and ignore all the good. Disqualifying the positive. This is real. This is a real one. Taking the positive as a negative, downplaying a compliment. So, at least personally, when talking to relatives and they're like, "Oh, you've grown so much," you know, and like when they say like to like my sibling, like, "Oh, wow, you've gotten so pretty now," and like I'll take it as like, "Damn, so I'm ugly, I'm chopped," but like that's not what they said at all, like I'm taking the compliment. I'm downplaying the compliment because I'm thinking like, oh, growing tall. I'm not even that tall, and then I'm taking the positive of like them complimenting me, and I'm taking it as a negative because I'm seeing it as like this is what they didn't say to me, you know. The book's example was like a lady that had a lot of friends, and like she was like asked out to hang like one day and another day, and then she was like, oh yeah, they only like the version that they see of me. They only like this version of me. But you know they still like you, like every version of you is you. There's no like true acting, like to truly be, like to truly act in a way, right? Like it has to be some part of you there, right? Like I thought that for a long time of like, people only like a version of me, but that's still me, jumping to conclusions. The author split this up into two things: mind reading and fortune telling. Mind reading, making the conclusion for them. They didn't show up, therefore they hate me. Uh, I've done that. I can't lie, I've done that. Of like, when a friend cancels on me, I just think like, oh yeah, they hate me. They hate me. But in reality, it's just like if you think about like maybe they had an emergency. Yeah, in the past, like it has been like a friend had an emergency, and like, you know, because they were in the emergency, they couldn't contact me. But like in the moment, I'll feel like, man, this person hates me, right? Uh, Fortune telling, telling yourself it's a foregone conclusion. This is like, yeah, saying if you fail or saying you'll fail the exam, so there's no point in studying. But if you studied, you might not have failed, right? Just like this also applies to like people. Like if you assume like a friendship is gonna die, then you're gonna treat the friendship differently, and then that's gonna ultimately lead to it dying because you're not putting the full effort that you should be putting into the relationship, right? Magnification and minimization, making small issues bigger than they are, making big wins small. Uh, yeah, I mean, everyone's done this, right? Like my biggest accomplishment, you know, probably hitting global elite like 4 years ago at this point. Whenever anyone says it, they or like asks me about it, I just say like, oh yeah, it was after the rank shift, like anyone could have done it. Like, it didn't take any skill. Like, solo queuing wasn't that big of a deal. But in reality, like that would still put me in like the top not percent of like players. Like I'm downplaying like a big win, like a big accomplishment. Uh, in group projects at university, like telling yourself like, oh yeah, anyone could have done my section, right? In reality, you're the one that did your section, right? You're the one that did the work. Not anyone could have done it. Um, kind of just downplaying your own wins, and it makes you feel worse, right? Making small issues bigger than they are. This for me was like when a friend is late. Honestly, I get a little peeved, and like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter if there's like 5 minutes late. Doesn't matter. Even if they're half an hour late, it doesn't matter because we're still going to do what we're going to do, right? Most things aren't as time sensitive. Like if it's like a hangout at my house, it's not going to be like, oh yeah, this has to start at this time, unless it's like a TV show. And if they miss the like portion of like the live show or something, that's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm missing it because I'm on time, and anyone that is on time isn't missing it. Like it shouldn't weigh on you. Emotional reasoning, the usage of your emotions as evidence. I feel guilty, therefore I must have done something bad. Um, the example, I don't remember. Actually, I probably wrote it down in my notes, but Basically, what this is like um, something that like you might not like. You feel like you did something bad to a friend, but in reality, that friend doesn't like think about it at all because it's just not that big of a deal. It's that. It's like you think that you're such an awful person, and like you're using how you feel as proof of you're an awful person. Like you're awful because you feel awful. And like sometimes your friends don't think like, oh, that was that big of a deal. And if they do, they'll talk to you about it, right? And like in my head, I was thinking like everyone is just gonna bottle everything up like me. But like in reality, people don't do that. If it's actually like something that bothers them, they'll talk to you about it, right? This kind of leads to things like procrastination. There's a later section in procrastination. I made these slides like yesterday in like an hour, so I don't really remember if I wrote that section in this. I probably did. I think it's in part two. Probably. Probably. Should statements. Creating unrealistic expectations for yourself and others with the word should. Like, I shouldn't eat that. Like, if you're on a diet, you're going to feel worse if you eat something that you think, like, I shouldn't have eaten that. You should have eaten it. Like, or in a sense, like, if your diet is so limiting that it feels like you're taking joy from your life, then, you should work that into your diet, right? Like, keep it in mind. You shouldn't feel bad for, like, putting something into that, I guess. Like don't set the expectations on yourself. And don't set the expectations on others. Like if you think like they should have invited me, you're making it think or you're making yourself think like, "Oh, this group of friends, they don't like me because they didn't do this." But in reality, like it could have been like they only have 3 slots, right? And you're not like a top 3 friend. That's okay. You just don't want to set unrealistic expectations for yourself or others. Like obviously the word should, you can use the word should. Like you shouldn't. You just it's more so like the idea of like setting expectations on others and yourself. Be realistic. Like you can aim for goals, but don't think like because I didn't do this, I'm a failure because I did do this or because I didn't get to do this. Yeah. Labeling, mislabeling. When you tell yourself you have no value, you begin to believe it. Yeah, like this this I can feel like when I'm playing a game and I just think like, oh man, I have a disease. I clearly can't aim. I tend to play worse after because it's in my head. And like I play differently because I think like, oh yeah, I need to get on the board. I need to do something instead of just playing my style, like, sticking to my system. And then this also applies to others, right? If you label someone as unreliable, you'll begin to treat them as unreliable, and then in turn you'll be a worse friend, right? Like if you see someone as always late, you're going to plan around the fact that they're always late. But in reality, they're still trying their best. And like someday they're going to show up early and then it's going to be more awkward, right? Just like be cognizant of the way you view yourself and others. That's basically the core concept of this one. Personalization, assuming responsibility for things out of your control. Like this one, I remember chatting with friends. I was thinking like, oh, it's such a good mentality to have that everything is my fault. Like I gotta lock in. I have full control of everything. But in reality, you don't. You know, there's a lot of things outside of your control. You have the power to influence. You can't control. Like you can ask your friend to do something, but they can't. Like you can't force them to do it. Everyone has free will, right? Like you can influence your exam results by studying harder, but you can't guarantee 100%, right? Because ultimately you don't know the questions. Maybe the prof decides to put a question that just wasn't in like this the syllabus or it wasn't in like the study guide. They could do that. There's just things out of your control, right? And the biggest thing is just knowing that, you know, you did what you could have done. Don't think that like you could have done like that it's all your fault. You could have done this. You should have done this. Don't think that. Practical applications. Is there procrastination here? There is, yeah, procrastination chapter 5. Uh, this will go over the chapters of building self-esteem, do nothingism. I, I changed the titles a little bit because they were a bit long, but uh, these are basically the titles. Learning to talk back when criticized, irritability quotient, and defeating guilt. Chapter 4, building self-esteem. Achievements bring you satisfaction, but not happiness. Uh, for me, this was like when I hit global, I thought like, man, I'm gonna be forever happy. This is like the thing that I've worked like 6 years, just every single weekend. This is the only thing that I've wanted in life. And like 3 weeks, I was like, I thought I was the happiest man on earth. But after like that, my life just felt like, what's the point of everything? This is like what I've wanted, and now I just feel like there's nothing else I want in life. Achievements bring you satisfaction. You're not going to stay eternally happy after you achieve something. Happiness comes from, happiness comes from within. But, it does, it's learning to be content with life and like enjoying moments of life. Things you achieve don't define you. They just they bring you satisfaction. If you don't love yourself, you won't be able to see the love others have for you. This is true. Like for a long time, honestly, you know, it, you think like everyone hates you because like they don't do this, they don't do this, but like everyone cares for you in their own way, right? People aren't as like monolithic as like you would think them to be. Everyone is has their own thoughts. People do their own things, right? Y- When you learn to love yourself, you can spot the love people have for you and like in the actions they do. It's really warm. Uh, the triple column technique, I've been using it. It's pretty useful. Just writing down your like personal negative thoughts each day, uh, finding the distortion from like the previous 10 points, writing why your thing is wrong because, obviously the negative thoughts come and they're probably wrong. Oh, not probably, they are. And like just attacking it and think because like I would just let them float around in my head. I would just think like, yeah, this is just how it is, you know. But writing it down, attacking it, and then marking like how bad I felt before, how bad I feel after, like it does feel good. Like thinking about like this thought I had, it's not true. Why is it not true? It's not true because of this. So like, this is probably like the thing that I would recommend the most from this book, like just trying out that triple column technique of like when you have a negative thought about yourself that just comes, write down which cognitive distortion you had and write down basically attacking that point. Like why is it not true? Um, Obviously it's a little bit private for everyone, so I I won't be going over what I've been writing. Uh, but like something that I wrote down recently was like there was a Dave Chappelle show and like that guy's my favorite comedian, and like honestly, I was doing terribly that day because I thought like, man, just my luck. Like this is just how it is. Like the one time I go to like visit, like go to a show that like I'm really gonna enjoy, it gets ruined. But in reality, that's personalization, right? Like it's out of my control. Like there's nothing I can do in that situation. People are gonna be what they're gonna be. I shouldn't let that. I can be disappointed, but like I shouldn't let it weigh on me. Like, oh, this is my fault. This is just what happens when I go out. I shouldn't think that, right? Because it's just not like there's nothing I can do, right? And like that made me feel better. It did. And that's kind of just what the triple column technique is, like attacking your own negative thoughts. Next, uh, another suggestion the author had was mental biofeedback. This one's a little bit weird. Like you can see like the date of this book. Like he said, like you get like a wristwatch that you just click the button and it keeps track. That's a little bit dated. I just use a spreadsheet and like go on my phone and add one each time I have like a negative thought. You know, these are not like the negative thoughts that like you write down. These are just like for me, it's like anytime I feel like kind of down, even if it's brief, I'll count it. And like it's not necessarily that I have like a wow, I'm so worthless moment. It's just like wow, I feel down, but like it's not necessarily something. And like the author said that there's not really a reason why it works. He has a theory of why it works of like you you become more cognizant of your emotions, and like you realize how much you do something, and then your mind just shifts of like having less of those thoughts. He said it'll go up for like about 10 days until like a plateau, and then it'll start to go down in like 3 weeks. Um, Personally, mine started out higher than I thought, and like there's been days where it goes down. It had, there were like a couple days where it was plateauing, but like I think this one I'll have to see more of because it hasn't been that long. It's only been about like 5 days for me. So this one, maybe I'll get back to you for the next section of this book, and we'll see. Cope, don't mope. Life is always flowing. It's impossible to absolutely label yourself as a failure. Everyone has their strengths, so believe in yourself. Yeah. You boost your self-esteem by attacking your sense of worthlessness. Mm, You have value. Everyone has stuff that they are good at. You know, don't think that you're worthless. No one's worthless. Yeah. My note said, the author says mental biofeedback likely works because we begin to self-monitor better. Yeah. Do nothingism. What are the most common mindsets associated with procrastination? Hopelessness. When you're so locked in on now, you forget you've ever felt good, and you don't really see how you could ever feel good in the future. Helplessness. There's nothing you can do because this is just how you are, and you have no control over the situation. Overwhelming yourself, magnifying a task to seem impossible, like a task that can be broken into down into smaller tasks, but only seeing it as one major task. The author had like a crazy analogy of like when you eat, you don't imagine all the food you've eaten before, because like that would seem like impossible, right? You just eat the meal that you is in front of you, and then you go next. Jumping to conclusions. Uh, I can't do it because I know it won't be fun. You know, I run these CS events and I haven't run them in a long time, and I just thought like, oh, what's the point of running them? Like, I'm not gonna be able to have like 9 people show up. Like, is it even that fun? And like actually playing them, it's great fun. Like, I have a lot of fun. It's a blast. Like, you don't know that it's not gonna be fun. You're just thinking that it's how it's gonna be, right? Self-labeling. You begin to reinforce your own ideas. That like if you say you're a lazy bum, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Undervaluing the rewards, assuming that a task isn't worth it because you know the reward won't be worth it. You know, uh, Perfectionism, not settling for anything short of an immaculate performance. So in the end, you settle for nothing. Like you think like, oh, I can't do it exactly how I want to, therefore it's not worth doing, right? Re- Results are a spectrum. Sometimes you'll be happy with like 80% of your result, right? Because that's still like a good performance, right? Fear of failure, fear of success. Fear of failure. Evaluate the process, not the product. Like failure isn't an indictment of your person. Consider why you failed and how you can improve for next time. Fear of success. That's a fear of like, new expectations, new opportunities to let people down. That's real. That's so real. Fear of disapproval and criticism. If you never try, you can never fail. The idea that if you mess up, you'll be so thoroughly taken down, you'll be an outcast. Uh, yeah, coercion and resentment. Telling yourself you should do this, burdening yourself. Then like leading to further pain when you fail to do it. Uh, like it's coercion of yourself, right? Of like, oh yeah, I should go on this diet, and then when you mess up the diet, you think like, man, I'm a worthless piece of shit. Are you that? No. You know, Low frustration tolerance. Not everything's gonna be easy, right? There's gonna be ups and downs. Progress is never linear. That's like the last week's book, Atomic Habits. Progress isn't linear. You, there's a valley of disappointment. And you got to push past that. You aren't gonna get immediate results, and it can be easy to get frustrated and quit, but just keep pushing through. You'll get where you want to go when you try. Uh, Guilt and self-blame. The feeling that you let someone else down. This leads to a lack of motivation in daily life. Yeah, like yeah. Your emotions are a result of your thoughts and attitude. Some tasks can feel worse when someone asks you to do it. So, try reframing what they ask as like your choice, right? If someone asks like, "Oh, could you take out the garbage?" You say like, "Yes, I am going to take out the garbage." Because like, I don't know why, but like it does feel better when it's like, yeah, I'm choosing to do this. Like going to the gym, am I saying like someone was like, "Oh, you should go to the gym." No, I am going to go to the gym today, visualize your success, even if it's unrealistic. If you always imagine yourself as like this lazy bum, you're not gonna be able to like push through. You gotta see where you want to be, and like after like this period of self introspection, I see myself as like kind of going back to the version of me that was more free and like less scared of everything, less worrisome. And I can see that version of myself. I can see where I am 3 months from now, and honestly, it's like part of me thinks like, how am I gonna get there? But it's small steps, every day getting 1% better, seeing like, you know, that version of me has existed and I can get back to there, Visualize your success. Test your limits. Limit testing. We all love limit testing. You might think you can't, but what if you try, Dare to fail. I guess not really fail, but, dare to try. There are, as Giannis Antetokounmpo says, there are no failures. There's steps to success. I love that quote. Chapter 6, learning to talk back when criticized. Only you can put yourself down. The way you take people's words, if the criticism is unfair, like, you know yourself. Just ignore it, You know what I mean? If it is fair, it's something to improve about yourself. Like no one's perfect, It's something that you can get better at. So, how do you go about handling criticism? First step, empathy. Don't get locked in whether or not like what they said is right or wrong. Ask for clarification, Change the space into one of like collaboration and mutual respect so that you don't feel like you're getting attacked, you know? Disarm the critic. Find a way to agree with them first. Make them burn through all their metaphorical ammo. And like, you know, the author's example was oh, okay, yeah. Honestly, his example, I thought like, damn, this guy this guy's kind of a psychopath. But like, oh, why did I write that? I think I get the concept in practice is just getting them metaphorically to blow their whole load, thus disarming them. Okay, that's kind of crazy. Anyways, defending yourself will make the critic harsher. Basically, just like listen to all their faults when they are like the faults they see, and then when they say it all, you know, build off that. Feedback and negotiation. Be assertive, tactful. If they're objectively wrong, admit that you may be wrong. Don't rub it in. Be tactful. Negotiation comes in when you're not completely right or wrong. Respectfully and assertively convey your feelings. If you aren't like that, because like sometimes you agree to disagree, right? And like the author talked about how some people didn't like his clothing, like they thought that he seemed too like profesh or too casual, but like it's what works for most of his clients, so like he's not going to change it, and it's what he feels most comfortable in, right? And it's just being confident, just saying that and calmly, yeah, I hear you, but I don't think I'll change about like this. I think I like this part of me. um if you know you are wrong, just admit it. You have a right to defend yourself, but you know, but being mad is better than being sad. You know, I'd rather be mad than be sad because, like, just don't create a situation where you feel bad about how you talk to the critic. Like if this is like your mom, right? And she probably just wants what's best, right? Don't think like, oh, she is definitely wrong. It's much better to be mad of like, oh, I don't agree, but like this is something I can improve in. It's better to do like think like that than to think like, oh, and like say something so harsh towards your mother that like you can't sleep. Yeah, be objective. Don't instantly assume all criticism is right or wrong. Just be introspective, investigative. Everyone can keep improving. You know. Chapter 7, irritability quotient. How much anger and annoyance are harbored each day? Anger is another distortion. Compare these, art is another distortion. Consider like these common happenings. Should statements. Person X should have showed up by now. Magnification. Person X being late by 10 minutes isn't a big deal, but it feels like one, right? Labeling. Person X is terrible because they're always late. You know? Jumping to conclusions. Person X did this intentionally, right? Anger itself can be adaptive or maladaptive. Like sometimes it's useful and self-enhancing, like using it for motivation of your own success or like conveying a point to a young person, like a child, like oh, look both ways when you cross the street because it'll just stick more in their mind. But it can be it's maladaptive when like it's useless and self-destructive. Like being angry in a basketball game, like we are like they're talking trash, I gotta prove them wrong. That's good in the game, but like if it carries out of the game and then into like you know, like if you just yell at your like son, like that's obviously not helpful. It's just self-destructive, right? What do you do if you get angry? Develop your desire by considering the pros and cons. Cool your thoughts. Be more objective. Similar to the triple column technique of just like, is this a valid thing? One thing to make the anger stick less is just like, don't imagine the revenge you take. That just makes it stick longer. Rewrite the rules of like, don't think like they should. Think like it would be nice if. Learn to expect craziness. People, like I said earlier, they're not like monolithic. They're not these super predictable beings, right? Everyone's different. Some people just think differently. Learn to expect craziness. Not everything is like an indictment of your character, right? Keep in mind, you aren't a pushover just because you don't get angry. Like, don't think that you have to get angry to stand up for yourself. You can stand up for yourself in other ways, in like a calm and a assertive way. And empathy. I'm pretty bad at this one. Consider why the other party might be angry. Try to get their thoughts and motivations. It's really easy to just like, at least for me, like assume that like I do both of like assuming no one thinks it like thinks like me, and then also assuming that everyone thinks like me. And like it's really bad. Like everyone thinks differently. There's like just consider their thoughts and of like why they did what they did. Sometimes maybe they did it intentionally, but why did they do it intentionally, right? Why did they talk trash? They thought they could get in your head because they thought that you would play worse. Anger is more eruptive than episodic, or eruptive and episodic than depression. So just uh, the book suggests like rehearsing situations, like imagine situations that'll make you angry, and it'll make you better at dealing with these situations. Chapter 8, ways of defeating guilt. This is cognitively seen as I have done something I shouldn't have, or I failed to do something I should have, therefore I'm a failure. This is not healthy, obviously. Uh, Burns says remorse is better, like knowing you willfully but unnecessarily hurt someone, and you should target the behavior, not like yourself. You should aim to be remorseful, not guilty, because guilt is targeting yourself. It's putting yourself in blame versus remorse. You're thinking like the behavior, like what I did is wrong, and I'm not going to do that again. The most common cognitive distortions here are labeling. You're not a bad person just because you did something wrong one time, right? Personalization. Not everything is your fault, right? I think the author's example here was like a lady whose brother killed herself or killed himself, and uh, the lady did everything she could have, right? But she felt like it was her own fault of like, oh, I shouldn't have told him about carbon monoxide. But like, you moved him in, you paid for his therapy, right? And like, he didn't even die from carbon monoxide poisoning, right? So like, you shouldn't take blame for things that aren't yours. You know, should statements, yeah. Don't feel guilty of thinking like, oh, I should have done X instead of Y, kind of thing. The guilt cycle of like, I feel guilty, I should be condemned, I deserve suffering. That's bad. Punishment doesn't drive success. You need to believe that you are capable of being a better person. That's where it starts. Believe that you can. And it's really hard to like have that belief of like you can start today, but I'm telling you, you can start today. I believe in you. Replace your guilt with empathy. Imagine how they would feel. Judge the correct amount of remorse. Like it can be hard to know like, oh, I know I did this thing wrong, but like how should I feel? You just kind of yeah, imagine yourself in their shoes. Like was what you did like really hurtful, pretty hurtful, like that yeah. Did I consciously and willfully do something bad? Am I labeling myself as a bad person for this? Am I giving a realistic amount of remorse for my action? Am I learning and considering how I need to improve? That's how you kind of attack the guilt. Things that the author suggested that might help with guilt: daily record. Same thing as the triple column technique. Should removal: stop the weight of your own lofty expectations. Sticking to your guns. Don't bend over to the wills of others, like getting guilt tripped. There's a couple like weird uh, strats, anti-whiner of like if someone's like dumping something on you, like agree with them, compliment them, like they'll feel better about it. Mori Moner method of like find a way to agree, then find the positives in the complaint. This is also crazy, but this is more so of like I think the example was like, oh, uh, I think my daughter's smoking weed, and then the reply with, wow, weed must be really cheap right now. Which I'll be honest, I don't see how that helps particularly, but you know, uh, maybe that'll help you. Like, you feel like in the guilt of like someone ranting towards you, like you wanna help them through it. Uh, yeah. Develop perspective. Don't attribute things out of your control to yourself. Yeah. Part three: realistic depressions. Sadness is an emotion that describes a negative event. Depression is an illness. Like it's okay to think, yeah, I'll miss this person, but it's not okay to think like I'm never gonna be happy again. The author's like four anecdotes. He had another one about like him seeing like a patient die and how like it reminded him of his grandfather, and it was pretty cute. But these are like the four key ones of like times that he thought like this is like a realistic depression. Like they should feel depressed, but in reality, like you can feel sad, but you shouldn't feel depressed. Like you shouldn't feel like life will never be any better. Loss of life. This is a lady with like a terminal illness. She felt like there's no point in like doing anything. It's like I'm just gonna die. But everyone dies. Like these 6 months or so you have, you know, you still have value. Like you might not be able to work anymore, but you can still do other things, right? You're still you. Like you're not fully like you physically you might not be all there, right? Like if you like if your illness is debilitating where you're in a wheelchair, like you might not be able to run like you used to, but in your head you're still going to be you, right? Enjoy that time, right? Loss of a limb. This one was like the lady's husband lost a leg in like a factory accident or something, and like she was depressed because she was seeing all the couples like, oh look, the husband can like carry her to the beach or something. They can do dancing, but like the author just kind of said like, change your mindset. Think about what you can do with your husband. Your husband is like still like a great person to talk to. You love your husband, right? And like that made her feel better. Loss of a job, failed entrepreneur. This guy, he quit a large firm after a big dispute, and he felt like he wasn't succeeding at anything in life, and like even like after when he like had that failed like bookstore and all that stuff, it was like his framing because like his career wasn't his life goal. His life goal was having kids and being able to provide for them, and he succeeded in that, right? And just hearing that like recentering, it was good for him at least. You know, you just got to think about like reframing yourself. You're not defined by your career. You're defined by yourself. If maybe who knows, maybe your goal is career related, but consider like your successes in life. You succeeded in things in your life. No one's an absolute failure. Everyone has done things that they should be proud of and they can be proud of. Loss of a loved one. Uh, oh yeah, this was the suicide one from uh, that I mentioned in like the personalization of like guilt. basically the this like physician lady was like, "Oh yeah, this is all my fault because my brother killed himself." But, you know, she really did try her best. Like you can't you have to be mindful of what you can and can't control. She could influence him to try to make him not kill himself, but ultimately it's still him, right? Like there's nothing that she can do. She can help, she can't stop it, right? And yeah, that kind of wraps up this week. I've been yapping for a while. Uh, I hope to see you next week for the next section of this presentation, I guess. Maybe we'll finish the rest of the book. Next part of the book, let me just see the next chapters. There is probably some heat in here. Let me read out the heat because I do remember there being heat. Chapter 11, approval addiction. Chapter 10, the cause of it all, prevention and self-growth. For part 4, uh, your work is not your worth. Dare to be average. Choosing to live. Practicing what he preaches. Uh, Consumer guide to antidepressants and love addiction. So I hope you'll be here to join me for that. And I guess I'll see you next week.